Welcome back to the Pre-Vetted podcast, where we spotlight extraordinary people and remarkable talent reshaping our world. Today, we're joined by Zach Mabe. He's a senior product manager at Amazon. Zach has built his career around one core idea, helping business delight customers with the right products for the right problem at scale. With strengths spanning from product management, data analysis, strategic planning, and cross functional collaboration, he spent his life turning complex challenges into simple, customer centric solutions that actually ship and make a difference. Zach, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you.
We were talking before starting recording about this idea of the hammer, right? That the hammer is simple, easy to understand, and we were talking about how that connects, how the current products are overcomplicated and we haven't had time to build an actual hammer, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, 100%. Right. And like, I see this, it's a really big challenge as a product manager, right? Like kind of constantly reminding yourself that you're trying to build that hammer, right? That very simple tool that everyone's going to understand how it works. And they're always going to work the same, right? All hammers work the same, right? Because you get so embedded in the use of your product that all these little like paper cuts or like small annoyances, right? You know how to work around them, right? Um, and so it is always challenging to kind of continuously reground yourself in the customer and figure out how do I make this like very simple experience that customers are going to engage with and it will have done the thing they want it to do as quickly as possible and with as little intervention from them as possible, right? And those
Right.
are like the truly magical experiences.
Yes, because if we can build a product that it's self-explanatory and easy to use and can apply to as many possible use cases, then you build this. What I'm trying to say in too many words is there is something magic about the simplicity of the hammer, right?
Yeah, 100%. And, you know, anytime customers have an expectation of what a product should be doing for them, right? Which is every product, everything customers use, they have an expectation of what it's going to do, right? And so understanding those expectations is like so critical in the difference between a magical experience and just an average one, right? Because
Right.
people will figure it out, right? Like if they have an end destination in mind when they engage with a product and that end destination is worth it enough, they'll suffer through friction and through problems to get to that end point. Um, but that doesn't make it like a great experience, right? The great experience comes from all of my expectations were met, or maybe even expectations I didn't know I had, right? But that subconsciously I was hoping would be true, just happened.
Right. Right. And I think that's the great impact that the product managers can bring to a team, where you can help the company build simpler products that has a much more significant impact on the users, right?
Yeah, I agree, right? I mean, it's our job. Like people, I always enjoy trying to explain to like friends, like, what do I do, right? Like they always ask, like, what does a product manager actually do? And I look at them and I'm like, it's a great question, right? Like, of course I produce products, right? I produce BRDs and whatnot, right? I write documents, spend a lot of time writing, but like at its core, I feel like being a product manager is being a professional decision maker, right? Like you are engaged for your ability to know the space, critically think, and make the right decision, right? End of the day, your job is to make the right decision for the customer. Um, and so in these moments, like this is why, the dog food thing, right? Which like, man, I don't know how we came up with that term dog food. This is a horrendous term, but like it's critical, right? I mean, every single product that I join or like work on, I begin using it religiously, right? Every opportunity I can, right? Like honestly, it, Amazon has probably made more money from me since I joined Amazon just because of like my engagement with the products I've worked on, right? Where I feel this need to go use it because if I'm not using it, right? Like I am also a customer. The expectations I have as I use that product are going to be shared by thousands of people, right? Um, and that doesn't say anything about UX research and user studies, right? And like these engaging with the customer where they're at, right? That's also super critical and everything. But like, if you don't understand the product, if you don't understand the pain of your own product, you're never going to get the magical experiences, right? Because you won't have wanted them, right? You won't have had missed expectations where you go, man, this really should have done X thing here, and it didn't. And now I have to go work around getting that outcome I wanted, right?
Right. It's interesting because it's a moving target, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
these expectations change over time, right? And if you do a good job as a product manager to finding what are these expectations of the users, then your job become invisible because people don't see it because they don't complain, right? It
Yeah,
meets the expectations, right?
yeah.
Which means you're doing a great job, right?
I I actually love that you said that like your job becomes invisible thing because I actually think it's a hugely underrated aspect of product management, right? The more
Right.
useless people think I am, I almost feel like I'm doing a better job, right? Like because if people don't see the just absolute mess that is all of these inputs coming in through me and filtering out the other side, right, to the engineering team, right? If I am able to take the just absolute crazy noise that is like this side of the decision funnel and drive clarity on the right side of it to the point that people aren't even sure why I'm there because the decisions seem all so obvious, that I'm like, man, I'm killing it, right? Like it is a funny thing. The more invisible your job is, almost the better you're doing, right? And like you're totally spot on these changing expectations. I think, like we're seeing it so rapidly right now with AI, right? Every single time we bring an AI product or tool to bear, it is the like single biggest challenge meeting customer expectations, right? Because when AI works, right, the way we hope it does, the reason that everyone feels so great about it is because it is the most magical thing, right? That is the single most magical experience for sure when AI works the way we hope. But getting it there is really hard, right? And so that's that is, I think, very spot on, right? This moving expectation. And like, I think almost the worst part is everyone kind of knows where the challenges are with AI today, right? And so like when ChatGPT gives me a really bad response back, I'm like, oh, okay, I could probably ask the wrong question, right? Engaged with it slightly the wrong way. And like we were talking about this before we started recording too, right? Like if customers have an outcome in mind, they'll kind of work around those frictions, but that doesn't make it a good experience. But like someday
Right.
ChatGPT is going to find a way to work inside those expectations, and even with bad prompts, come out with the thing you wanted. But then customers will just move on to expecting something else out of that product, right? So you're never done, right? No product is ever done being built. You just decide to move on from it, right? It's kind of like writing or any other form of art, right? It's never actually done. You just have deadlines or you have the next thing that needs doing, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean it's a piece of art is never done. There's actually a deadline that, when you have to publish it. Yeah. And I feel the same thing with the products. Yeah. The level of coordination that needs to happen for a product to be successful is very, very complex, right? And so one of the things that I've been doing on my engineering team is kind of trying to give them this awareness of what we're building has a value to the user, right? So trying to it's not facilitate, but aligned with the product owner's vision and building more empathy with them, right? Because then that way, instead of becoming a uh, uh, providing objections of, oh, this, there's a better way to implement this or whatever, then we can become a collaborator, right? To build the vision of the product owner, right? Um, and it's because of this complexity, because you have so many layers, that idea kind of get lost in translation, and that has been really interesting for me, right? Because I think I mentioned it before, but I earn more and more appreciation toward your role because I've seen the impact that has on people, right?
Yeah, yeah, I appreciate that. But I mean, yeah, and engineering is hard, right? That is an incredibly hard job. You are expected to have this skill set that is incredibly technical, right? And incredibly deep in a subject matter, right? But then also always be able to bring it back to the customer, right? And like the user that we're trying to delight. And so it's a really tough thing, right? But I think this is what kind of separates exceptional engineers from the rest, right? Which is if you understand the business enough or the end vision or the customer enough to actually push back and help shape the end product, right? Beyond like the actual kind of pure technical, right? Like that's obviously a thing that we rely on for engineering, right? Like when I have a thing I want done, I rely on engineering to help me understand how to get it done, right? Like that's obvious. But I feel like the
Right.
next step is understanding like, well, why do you want this done? What is the underlying user problem to your point that you're trying to solve? And then pushing back there too, right? I mean, that's exceptional, right? I love when my engineers ask me questions and I'm like, oh, you get it, right? You get the problem, you get the user, the customer's problem, right? It's not just I've told you I want the button to open up Y page when you click it, right? You understand why I'm picking that spot for the button, right? Or you have questions about it, right? You understand why the button should look like that, or you have questions about it, right? You push back on like, should it be this page or this page, right? Um, because you actually understand the customer journey, right? That's tough, right? That's a big ask, especially given, you know, just that job produces, right? The point of being an engineer is to build a product, right? End of the day. And
Right.
and so that's still your first responsibility. So it's kind of like everything, right? Where like we all wear multiple hats, right? Every once in a while I'll have to pick up an Excel spreadsheet and just do a bunch of finance analysis, right? Because the finance team doesn't have time for it, right? Or, in the world of AI, I'll pop into an AI tool and draft up some UX mocks that are code ready, right? Like without necessarily going through my UX team, right? And that's just kind of the multiple hats that we all have to wear. But yeah, it's hard, but it is critical. It is a big difference between like I think a really high functioning team um, and just kind of average ones.
Right. Right. Probably this is an oversimplification, but the best way of being able to explain this is product owners have the what needs to be built, and the software engineers know the how to build it. Right.
Hmm.
Um, and sometimes there's a back and forth on that because um, it's easy on on the a non-technical product owner to say let's build this, but it's technically challenging or impossible, right?
Yeah,
And there, if we tweak it a little bit, then there's a better way to do it, right? So that having that negotiation, right, uh, is a great service for the product and for the users, right?
yeah. I honestly I always love those conversations. They're some of my favorites because I'll come in and like I just know the engineer's going to start it like I'm building the Porsche, right? Like whatever your ask is, I'm going to build the Porsche version. And I feel like I'm always coming in and I'm like, whatever the ask is, I want the soapbox derby car version. Whatever gets it done fastest and down the hill. That's it. That's all I need. And then hopefully, right, in these conversations, you understand a little bit kind of why I feel the urgency, right? Or like why we need to do this quicker, why it doesn't need to be perfect. And I understand why it can't just be held together with like duct tape and dreams. And we land on the Toyota Corolla, right? Like that's always
Right,
my hope, right? That like through this discussion, we can figure out the Toyota Corolla version of the product, right? And
right.
and that's like nothing to say like, obviously there's the other super overused analogy, right, of the skateboard, right? Like the MVP concept, right? Of like, yeah, you build the skateboard and then you add handlebars and turn it into a scooter type crap, right? As you build into the car, right? I mean, that is always true, right? Like we always need to be iteratively developing, right? Where we come up with ways to deliver as we build the end product, but the end product vision hopefully is more of the Toyota Corolla and not always the Porsche or not always the
Right.
soapbox derby car. Having said that, I think that's a lot of culture, right? I've seen that like I think which one you end up with always ends up a lot of the culture and the direction of like leadership, right? How quickly they need to see product come out, how much do they understand that Um, if you want product built the right way, it takes a little bit longer, right? And I think that often ends up like, I mean, I hate when people talk about it this way, but maybe it's the easiest way, right? Is it a more product driven organization or an engineering driven organization, right? Which, I don't like it because it makes it seem like we're on opposite sides when we're not, right? But like that I do feel like ends up kind of the culture.
Right. Right. Yeah, I've been there when I was um I was technically, obsessed on the technical quality, trying to build something that is super perfect and optimize it on the technical side. Yeah, but what's the point if nobody's going to use it, right?
Yeah.
Or it's not going to provide value to the user, right? Yeah, but look at my code; it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, but it, does that have an impact to the user, right?
Yeah. Or you just don't put a big enough dent in the problem fast enough, right? I mean, I think that ends up the biggest trade-off always, right? Is any like, I'll give an example, right? Like when I pitch a product vision to leadership, right? And I go to them and I say, look, here's this problem. It's X size. Like this opportunity is huge. We can do a lot here, right? We have the skill sets and the expertise to do a lot in this space. And then they say, yep, great. We love it. We're going to give you 5 people. Go solve the problem. Like how many years of appetite, right? Do you think that they have before they want me to come back and say, you know that X I told you? Yeah, we got 80% of it, right? Like it, people want to see you eating into the entitlements that you call out, right? Like if you say I can do X, they want to see the roadmap of where you're slowly but surely eating into that entitlement, right? And delivering into that space. And anytime and this is why we make these trade-offs, right? Because if you build the Porsche, you're just not delivering fast enough, right? You're not going to be getting the entitlement quick enough to satisfy like the pace of customer expectations, right? Like to make it more about the customer, right? Like customers want to see advancements, they want to see new CXs, they want to see new things to do. That's how they stay engaged. And from a business perspective, right? Like we're not running charities, right? Like end of the day, the point is to claim those entitlements, right? To do the things we said we're going to do and to do them in a way that is aggressive and uh, with urgency, right?
Right, right, because timing becomes a significant factor especially when you're building a new product. Um, the first to launch it, is going to have a much bigger impact on the market, right?
As long as you
Um,
get it right.
right,
Because
right.
we see lots of times where you don't get it right, and then the second person is like, I could do that better.
Right, right. I still remember when Elon Musk crashed the ball to the Tesla Cybertruck, and and crashed the glass, right?
Yeah.
Uh, and he was surprised about it, right? Um,
I
so
do not
you
want to
know,
be on the receiving end of whatever email came out of that. Man, that must have been wild.
yes, yes. And the reason I mentioned that is because you can see it on physical objects, physical products, right? But it's hard to see on software products, right? You build a house now, move it 5 inches to the left because we missed something, right? Well, it's a whole ordeal, right?
Yeah.
Uh, or move a wall, right? You can see it physically. You can see the debris. You can see, you need more wood, whatever. Um, but with software, you don't see that, right? Because we just rebuild something and there is no debris, right? It's just wasted time, if you like, right?
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think you're right. It's easier to see those advancements and how critical those timings are in physical product than it is in digital, right?
Right.
Phones are a great example. iPhone is constantly trying to like I don't want to say guess, right? That makes it seem like they're just throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks. But like, they are innovating on features of a phone, right? The new Air is a good example, right? They're testing this new form factor, like how sensitive are customers going to be to things like a camera if they can get a phone that's half the thickness and like half the weight, right? Like these are like very obvious physical product developments that change how people engage with the device. but online it can be harder to see, but it's just as critical, and people just maybe don't see it, right? I'll give you an example, like of a recent feature that I kind of saw pop up on Amazon. I wasn't involved in building this, but I saw it and I was like, this is a thing, talking about expectations, that as a customer I've had the expectation of ever since we launched sub same day delivery, right? So, on Amazon in like Seattle, I think it's mostly like urban areas, right? Like you can get delivery next day now, right? If you hit certain cart limits, blah, 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 right? So you can put $25 worth of stuff in your cart, get it in the next morning by 8 a.m. or whatever, right? Like the delivery timelines. This is just a thing that's out there. Always, I sat there and I was like, why, if I've already placed an order for $25, can I not add to it if I find something else that I want that is qualifies for same day, but I can't hit $25? Like I should just be able to add it to that delivery, right? That was a friction point, right? But now there's an add to delivery button, right? And like that is so amazing, right? To like make that improvement to the customer experience, right? And that's the innovations we're talking about, right? Like that's the timing. But Amazon has competitors, right? And like, there's other e-commerce platforms out there that are hot on our heels with, being just as innovative and pushing just as hard to delight the customer. And it's the same thing, right? Like if Amazon can't keep up with what are customers' expectations in search, what are customers' expectations in adding to cart, to checking out, right, to delivery speed, to all of these things, and somebody else comes out with the same thing, right, a sub same day delivery feature, and they had that add to next delivery button, right? Like they beat us on the CX, right? They got there first, and like customers are going to pick up on that. So it's there for sure. Like those innovations happen. They're constantly changing how we present information, where one can add to the cart, right? Like these things are always evolving.
Right, right. I remember when Amazon added the that you could group your products together, so you would get less boxes, right?
Yeah.
Um, and when I saw that, I it was something that I was not expecting, right? This I don't know. This was many years ago, right? Uh, it's something that I didn't know that I wanted, but once I saw it, I thought that's brilliant, because now you can have one package, you can wait a little bit longer, but it's less shipping, it saves resources, right? Um, so and I've seen other competitors, lagging on some of these features. The delivery time was longer, right? So there was a longer friction on competitors, and it was easier to do business with Amazon, right? So I found that very interesting. Yeah. I've seen the other competitors kind of catch up on those type of features, right? So it's always a competition on adding these new features, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and I think that becomes an issue when you are trying to build those features and you add more complexity to the workflow. So it's a challenge to do that, right? Because
Yep.
if you're used to buy with one click, and now you have to click 3 times to do the same purchase, right? Or 5 or whatever, then that becomes an issue just for
Yeah.
that, right?
Well, in one click man, I love talking about one click CXs, right? Because one click experiences are so delightful when you get them right. But like the things the customer is expecting happens when they click that button to buy, right? Like what address am I picking? What payment method? What delivery speed, right? There's a lot of choices that were going into that checkout flow that you're now putting into one button, right? And we were talking about this in like the Apple devices thing, right? Like when I joined to this call, I had 4 possible microphones that Apple could have picked to record my voice right now, right? It picked the wrong one, ironically, but it's the same thing, right? Like it's the same thing of like you've simplified a process from 5 or 6 steps down to one, but then that puts a lot of onus on you as the business, as the CX driver, to make the right decisions that the customer is going to want, because otherwise everyone's going to stop using it, right? If I clicked buy now with that one click and it picked I don't know, my mom's address, which I use maybe twice a year, right? Like, I would be like, why did you do this? Like, I'm never going to use this CX again, right? So it it's important. It matters a lot.
Right, right. We were kind of talking about this before start recording. You mentioned the microphone. One story that I have about that I found frustrating. So you used to connect an external microphone, external screen on the MacBook, and then it will show a new screen, right? It will have a default decision. Now it shows a pop-up saying, what do you want to do? Do you want to extend your desktop, or do you want to screen mirror or extend your desktop? Something like that. But my question is why? Because now you have an expectation of, 0 clicks, it works. Now you have a click, right? And we had that issue, and that pop-up didn't show up on the screen for some reason. So we were frustrated. This was at the beginning of a talk, so we were frustrated of
Yeah.
work, damn it, right? And and in that conversation, one thing I don't remember if you or I bring it up, but whatever, it's we're talking about this idea of, wouldn't it be great if we can define the policies that we want, right? These type of decisions that are not interface based, right? But it's this smart, quote unquote, defaults. Wouldn't it be great if we can just, tweak it and improve it on the user side?
Yeah, 100%. And like, I think you've brought up another really good point about when technology removes our need to do something and then fails, right? And those are almost some
Right.
of the worst CX misses. This automatic input switching is like the best example. Man, I was talking to one of my younger siblings, right? Like I guess like sibling in law. Um and like they're kind of in that Gen Z generation, right? And they plugged in the HDMI cable to the TV for like their video game or whatever, right? And the input didn't automatically switch. And they unplugged it and plugged it back in like 20 times. And I'm like, what are you doing? Just go into the menu and like change the input. And they're like, I don't know how. And like that was such a mind-blowing experience for me, right? Because like I have come up with this technology and understood how to do those things because it was required, right? Like when I started plugging my freaking little three colors into the holes, the right colors match up, right? Into the
Yeah,
TV. I knew I
the
had to.
RCA.
Yeah, the RCA. Thank you. I couldn't quite remember what it was. Yeah, like when I had to plug my RCA cables into the back of the TV, like I knew I had to go switch the input. I had to do that myself. But the minute technology kind of improved and got to the point where it was like, no, I can detect there's an input coming in through this channel, I'm going to switch to it. That just becomes the default. Everyone expects it to work that way and they expect it to work flawlessly. And so all you get to do post that point is not delight customers, but disappoint them, right? Like that's kind of the double-edged sword of building better CXs. Once you make it the standard, your only opportunity is to disappoint people. Like it becomes their expectation. And if it fails, it's a huge problem. And if it works, well, that's just what it should do. That's what everyone does. Right. But, it's on to the next one, right? I mean, I think this is another thing we talked about, right? This is why working in tech is so much fun because it's never done, right? As soon as we build something like that, right, that just changes how people use a product, it's on to the next thing, right? There's always another customer problem to solve, and there's always more opportunity to build a CX that delights customers that you know maybe they didn't even know they wanted. Right? There's that
Right.
other Ford question, right? If I would have built a faster carriage, right? I mean, it's the perfect example of why tech is fun.
Right. Right. And the I found interesting the adventure of the unknown, right? Because it's so wild, some of the things that some stick, some don't, and I found that fascinating.
Yeah, I agree.
What are your thoughts on AI tools being able to help on predicting the customer experience, or being able to fulfill a great customer experience.
Yeah. I mean, so AI is like undoubtedly going to change how people interact with technology, right? I mean, probably 10 times this concept we were just talking about, right? Of like when I plug in the HDMI cable and it just switches, right? And how default that is. Like this times 10 is how AI is going to change how we interact with technology, right? It's just going to happen. I think the question is like timing and what exactly that looks like, and all the different modeling and knowledge bases we're going to have to bring to bear to make that reality come true. Um, but I think it's another area where customers have a lot of expectations. And when AI works, it's like one of the most magical experiences, right? Like when AI connects dots that I didn't even necessarily anticipate it to, and it gives me an output that is exactly what I wanted with like very minimal prompting, right? I ask basic questions and it gives me exactly the information I want. Amazing, right? I think like good examples are, chat assistants, right? For like customer service. If I can just like have in like fairly instantaneous, right? Faster than you get from like a person responses to my customer problems, and then get a solid resolution where that agent clearly understood me, magical experience. But every time kind of there's misses there, you're interjecting friction that can get very frustrating, right? And so it's a challenging one. I mean, it's definitely going to change the way we interact with technology, but I feel like anything, right? We're at kind of the beginning of it, right? The product is probably here and it needs to be here, and we're going to keep tackling it, right? Like all these different companies are going to keep coming out with new product and new ways to solve problems, and for me personally, right? Like I'm not a technical AI PM, right? Like I wouldn't know how to go build these models, right? But I am going to be a consumer of them, right? And so for
Right.
me, a big way I think about this is like, how am I setting my products and my asks to engineering up in a way that is going to enable me to best use AI tooling, right? And so then I have to be very much constantly aware of the iteration of those tools, right? So to give you a good example, we now have like ways to build code ready mocks, right? Using AI tooling. But the best way to do that is not to ask it to like constantly reimagine the UX, like the user experience and the UI every time I want to mock something up, right? I need to give it standards, right? I need to give it expectations of what I want to see come out the back end. And so already thinking about, when you're writing a BRD, what are your requirements to engineering going to be to make sure that like the UI elements they're building are being exposed to a knowledge base, right, that I'm then going to use in the future to build these UX mocks, right? So that I can move quicker, right? We already do this, right, for things like metrics, right? It's my job as the PM to tell engineering, this is going to be the ref tagging standards, right? Like the ref tagging, nomenclature and how we're going to track these things. Here's the kinds of metrics I want to track. Like, let's figure out how to get that done, right? That is already part of my process, right? Now I'm just adding to that, instead of metrics, right? Like the AI ready data that I'm expecting them to be exposing so that I can leverage these tools, right? And that doesn't require knowing how AI works. That requires understanding how AI tools work, right? Like as a PM, I know how to use Figma. To me, it's the same thing, right? Now, instead of Figma, I need to learn, how do these agents work? What kind of data are they going to expect? You know, we build internal AI tooling too, right? Like I need to become knowledgeable about that and the kinds of things it's going to need, right? So this is kind of how I think about AI, both from the product, like the product development side and the customer side, right? Like it's gonna change both, and we have to be honest about kind of the work it takes to get there and how we're going to enable it.
Right. Right. Yeah, I think that you don't need to know mechanics to drive a car. You don't
Yeah,
need to be an expert on AI to be able to build an AI product, right?
yeah,
Or AI enabled
100%.
product.
Right?
Yes.
I couldn't rebuild my car, but I can change the oil, right? I can
Right.
put gas in it, right? I know enough about owning my car and working with my car that I can keep the car running, right? It's the same thing, right? I would say it's every person's responsibility right now to become AI tooling literate, right? Like that is just the way it's going to be, and there's no stopping that. It's going to happen because it's too good that for it to not.
Right, right. Yeah, I think that the being able to set expected behavior. What do you expect the application to do and respond for a specific user case? That gives you the good enough setup for to pass down the requirements, right? So I think that's a great way to put it. And then on the assisting side, building when you're building a product, you can consume a lot of tools that are AI enabled that will allow you to build better products, right? Or assist you on some of the tasks that will consume a lot of time. Now you can delegate it to agents or tools that are AI enabled, right? That are becoming better and better every day, right?
Yep. And we have to be very aware of that change in engagement pattern, right? Like I
Right,
don't know many people today who are going and talking to ChatGPT and then like ordering product through ChatGPT, right?
right,
But if that was to like the more common that gets, right? Just talking to an agent through voice or through text, or even just search, right? If my expectation is if as a customer, right, I start looking more and more at search is like I'm not gonna search for, you know, I don't know, t-shirts, right? I want to give it a description of the t-shirt. I want to describe how I want it to fit. I want to describe the color, right? Like I give my thoughts on my search experience to this search agent and it spits out the right product for me. That is a seismic shift in like customer behavior, right? But those engagement patterns and possible ways of engaging are things that we need to be aware of that AI is going to change, right? Because today, like there was no predictive modeling that was good enough to do that, right? But that's going to change.
right. So I'll ask you one last question. What advice would you give to somebody who wants to get into product management? You know, based on your extensive career,
Yeah.
advice would you give them on how to become a great product manager?
I love this question. And like maybe a good opportunity to share a little bit of my background, right? Like I didn't start in product management, right? I started in finance, right? So I think the number one piece of advice I give people when they ask me this question is like two things. One, know your strengths, right? Product management is about wearing a lot of hats and it's about solving a lot of different problems. And no single person is an expert at everything, right? But know the kinds of things you bring to the table, right? Where your superpowers and your strengths are and how you're going to best help the customer. And then find opportunities where that skill set is going to be best utilized, right? Coming from finance for me, like that's analytics, right? I do data, I do modeling, I understand these things very deeply. And so I tend to pick products where that modeling and data focused decision making is going to be best utilized, right? But I'm not technical, so I would maybe shy away from like roles where as a product person I'm expected to code, right, for example, or you know what I mean, like because these kinds of roles exist, or that are really really deeply technical, right? Like I tend to be more on the consumer product side, less on like I probably would never go become an AWS PM, right?
Right,
So I think understanding your strengths is a huge one. The second one is don't get into product management unless you're willing to be fearless. Like you will make mistakes, and as a product manager those mistakes are huge, right? You don't get to just be like, oh, I sent an email and like it didn't go over well type of mistakes, right? No, this is like I broke customer facing features, right? Or I launched a product that just totally flopped and we spent 3 months of dev work on it, right? Like they're big mistakes, but this is what innovation looks like, right? if when you're innovating, you're only doing things that you know what the outcome is going to be, you're not actually innovating, right? Innovation comes from doing things where you have no clue what the outcome is going to be, right? And I constantly challenge people when like I sit in meetings and I hear us talking about like, oh, we know this is going to do this. And I'm like, well, then I don't know that we're pushing ourselves enough, right? Like, so you have to be willing to be fearless and to go after product vision with like dogmatic belief, right? And not be easily dissuaded from the vision you set for yourself. Otherwise, failures are just going to set you back too much, right? And there's going to be a lot of failure, probably as much failure as success.
Yes, I agree. I mean, being able to take risks for the sake of launching a more innovative product, I I think that's a great advice. So, Zach, thank you very much for joining us today. I think we learned a lot about products. I truly appreciate it. And any final remarks before we wrap it up?
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. I always love getting to share kind of my experience and my views on these things, right? I mean, like I'm just one guy who has opinions, right? And they're only my opinions, but you know, I'll continue to fearlessly share them, right? Follow my own advice.
Great, great. Thank you.
Thank you.